At a dusty auction on the border, they brought out a gray horse, ribs like fence posts, eyes half shut. The auctioneer called him near dead.
1 penny. Somebody, take this worthless animal off my hands, or I'll shoot him here and now.
The crowd laughed, but a boy pushed through, Lucas Mendoza, 12 years old, whose fury held them still.
I'll buy him. 2 pennies.
He held out his hand. 2 copper coins glinted in the sun, worth less than a dry loaf of bread.
Sold. Take your dead horse, boy, and may you both rot in the desert.
Lucas took the halter rope. The horse's hooves scraped the dirt as he pulled it forward, away from the jeering crowd. The horse stumbled, but deep in that dull eye something glimmered. Not hope, but a stubborn refusal to fall. Lucas bore a fresh scar on his cheek, still red from a recent lesson in the town's cruelty. Behind them, the auctioneer's hammer fell again. Lucas and the gray horse were already on the dirt road to his grandmother's hut, where a fire burned and a prayer waited. The adobe hut had a tin roof patched with rags. Smoke bled from a hole as Lucas stumbled up.
Abuela, open the door. The horse won't last out here.
A horse, Lucas? Have you lost your mind? It's barely alive.
The answer never came. The horse's knees buckled, folding into the dust like a puppet with cut strings.
He's not dead. He just needs a chance. Please, Abuela, you are the only one.
Work, herbs, prayers, and still he might die. But your eyes won't let me refuse.
She went to her shelf. The mortar ground juniper and resin, a smell that promised pain or healing. Together, they dragged the horse inside. Straw crunched under its weight as it settled into a bed of husks. Her gnarled hands spread the dark paste over rib bones. Her chant rose, old words that asked the earth for mercy. Lucas slept in the corner, one hand reaching toward the shallow breath. The night held its decision. Dawn light cut the dark. The horse still breathed, a shallow rattle in its chest. Lucas pressed a wet rag to its mouth. The horse swallowed. A small, stubborn victory.
Swallow this brew, beast. It will burn like sin, but keep you from the grave.
I'll call you Gray. When you rise, you'll be the storm they couldn't kill.
He whistled low. The horse's ear flicked, a tiny answer from a body refusing to die. By the next dawn, the gums were tinged pink. Not a miracle, but a promise written in flesh.
Abuela, look, his eyes follow me. He wants to fight.
Following eyes won't lift him from the straw. The real work hasn't started.
The third morning, the horse lifted its head unaided. Water dripped from Lucas's hand into its grateful mouth. Still unable to stand, but for the first time, the gray horse chose to live. Lucas saw it in his eyes. Weeks slipped by. The gray horse's bones vanished under new muscle as Lucas worked beside the old woman.
Hold him steady. If he falls now, his heart might break before his legs.
Lucas braced himself against the heaving flank. The horse's legs buckled, but he did not collapse.
Come on, Gray. You didn't cheat the grave for this. Get up.
Catherine chanted a prayer her mother taught her. Tears carved lines through the dust on her face, and then Gray stood. All 4 hooves firm on the packed earth, trembling but upright.
You see, Abuela? He's standing. He's actually standing.
The left ear jerked in a nervous tick, the only scar that would never heal. He took one step, then another. Lucas walked beside him, hand on his neck, whispering old words. Outside, the sun fell behind the mountains. Inside the hut, a boy and a horse learned to walk again. But the world still didn't know. A full year turned. The horse that had crawled now thundered across open ground, mane flying like a war banner.
Come on, Gray.
Lucas lay flat against the bare hide, teeth gritted, the wind screaming past his scar.
Lucas, that horse has a past hunting him. Come back.
That night, by the fire, she spoke of the viper they had awoken.
Castillo breaks what he cannot own. If he learns this horse lives, he will come.
Beyond the fire, The lights of his ranch glimmered like a threat.
Then we'll keep Gray hidden. Only ride at dusk and dawn.
Hiding is a bitter delay, child, but for now, it's all we have.
The fire died. Lucas stared at the distant lights, his hand on the twitching ear. The year of peace was over, and something dark was closing in. A market trader saw Lucas riding at dusk. By noon, the whisper had galloped to the iron gates of Castillo's ranch. Jaime, a rider with rope-scarred hands, burst into the office where Castillo brooded over ledgers.
Patron, that gray horse you sold for 2 pennies. It's alive. The Mendoza boy raised it from the dead.
Castillo's gloved hand tightened on the desk. The pale yellow eyes went cold as a winter creek.
Alive? I broke that animal's will myself. This insult won't stand.
He saw an opportunity to reclaim lost pride and a horse that might fetch a heavy purse.
Get the men. We ride now.
Leather creaked as Castillo and his men mounted fresh horses. Dust rose in the yard as they turned toward the hut. Castillo led them, jaw set, the brim of his hat casting a blade of shadow across his eyes. Lucas, checking rabbit snares, saw the dust cloud on the horizon. He knew what it meant. Lucas sprinted to the hut, dust choking his throat. He threw open the door. Abuela, riders, Catherine emerged, squinting at the dark shapes thundering toward them.
Get the horse inside now. He can't be seen.
But before Lucas could move, Castillo's group reined in at the clearing, hooves skidding on the hard earth.
That horse is mine. You'll return it now, or you'll regret the air you breathe.
You sold him for 2 pennies. A contract's a contract, even in the dust.
There is no claim here, Frank Castillo. You gave up that right the day you shattered this animal.
1 week. If you don't hand over the horse, I'll burn this shack with you both inside.
He wheeled his horse, a sneer splitting his face. His men followed, dust rising like a shroud. Catherine's hand trembled on Lucas's shoulder. The ultimatum had been given, but no decision had been made. Not yet. That night, the men returned. Torches painted the darkness orange, and the horse's hooves were muffled with rags. Lucas woke to the crackle of flames outside. The horse snorted, eyes wide, ears flat.
They're here. Take the horse and the box. Go.
The thatch roof ignited. Sparks flew into the night as Lucas dragged the terrified horse outside. Catherine snatched her sack of herbs. Lucas clutched a tin box against his chest as they fled.
Abuela, your remedies.
Leave them. The herbs will grow again if we survive tonight.
From a hill, they watched the adobe walls crumble. The home of their lives. Reduced to glowing embers, they huddled under a mesquite tree, the horse trembling beside them. Nothing left but ash and a tin box. The week's grace had been a lie. Now, vengeance smoldered in Lucas's chest, cold and unformed. Catherine wiped ash from the tin box. The clasps snapped open, revealing a lifetime of copper and silver. The sight cut through Lucas's dark thoughts.
You had this the whole time?
For your wedding, your children. But now there is a faster road. The northern race, Lucas, the winner takes a purse, and his name in glory.
The word hit him like a thrown stone. The race, where men wagered fortunes and horses burned across the salt flats.
Gray is strong, but that race, it's a slaughter.
They already burned our home. The only way out is through the fire. Enter him.
Something hardened behind his eyes. Not a boy's anger anymore. A man's resolve.
Then we enter, and we win, or we die trying.
As if hearing his name, the gray horse stamped the ground and let out a sharp whinny that echoed across the empty dawn. Lucas tightened his grip on the tin box and stood. The race office was 3 leagues away, and he had less than a week. Lucas walked into the race office and poured the coins onto the wooden table. The clerk stared at the dusty silver, then at the boy's scarred face. Before a word was spoken, the door burst open. Castillo stepped in, his shadow swallowing the light.
That entry is void. That horse belongs to me.
He belonged to you when he was dying. You sold him for 2 pennies. Now he's mine.
The clerk's quill hovered. The law gave the boy his right, but Castillo's stare promised blood. He dipped the nib. The scratch of the pen was the only sound in the room.
You'll wish you had died in the fire, boy. That gray won't see the finish line.
Lucas folded the entry ticket into his pocket. He didn't look back as he walked out. Behind him, Castillo's men parted. The race was set, but the real battle had just begun. That night, by the fire, Catherine motioned Lucas close. Her face was harder than he'd ever seen.
Lucas, when I worked at Castillo's ranch, I saw him break your horse with a rock, deliberately.
Lucas's jaw clenched. The firelight caught his scar, a thin line of ancient pain and fresh betrayal.
He did it to fix a bet. Smashed that animal's spirit so no one would ever wager on him again.
For a long moment, there was only the crackle of burning wood. The weight of the truth settled like ash.
Then she lifted an old shotgun from her sack. Your grandfather's. If Castillo comes for you, use it.
Lucas lifted it, the weight of iron and carved initials heavy in his hands.
I'll carry it, Abuela. Not for revenge. To make sure he can't hurt us again.
He laid the shotgun beside him and stared at Gray, sleeping under the same stars. The horse's ear twitched in its sleep. Lucas finally understood the depth of the evil they faced. In those last weeks, Lucas rode Gray into the wind until both were nothing but dust and heartbeat. He spotted a wild Mustang and gave chase. Gray's legs stretched, eating the distance in ravenous strides.
Faster. Gray. Show me what you have.
The Mustang fell behind. Gray ran like the salt was on fire, his ear twitching with each bound. Back at camp, he stroked Gray's neck. The horse's ear still jerked in a nervous rhythm. Catherine stood by the dying fire, her voice sharp with old knowledge.
The race isn't won on speed alone. Watch for La Riata. They'll throw the rope to bring you down.
At dawn, Lucas tied a stone to a rope and took it to the flats. He rode Gray at full speed while Catherine swung the weight. Lucas flattened against the neck, the stone hissing past his ear.
We're ready, Gray. Let them bring their lassos.
The morning of the race broke hot and still. Arena flags hung limp as Lucas led Gray through the murmuring crowd, but Jaime pushed through, lasso coiled at his saddle, a smirk carved across his face.
Better to crawl back to your ashes, boy. This track will eat you both.
Then we'll make good kindling.
From the edge of the crowd, Catherine stepped forward, her hands clutching a small charm.
She pressed a charm of bone and feathers onto Gray's bridle. San Isidro guard your steps, she whispered.
Lucas swung onto Gray's bare back. The horse's ear twitched, but his legs were solid. High in the stands, Castillo watched. His pale eyes tracked every movement, gloved hand tightening on the railing. At the rope, the starter raised a red flag. Dust swirled and a hush fell over the crowd. Lucas leaned forward, fingers laced in mane. The world narrowed to the track ahead and the boom that was yet to come. The pistol cracked. Hooves tore the dirt, and the horses lunged forward in a wall of dust and muscle. Lucas kept Gray steady, letting the pack string out ahead. He remembered the old warning, patience saves legs.
Out of my way, gutter rat.
Jaime's chestnut slammed into Gray's shoulder, but the gray horse only grunted and held the line. Dust turned the world to grit. Lucas peered through the sting, searching for the hand that would hold the rope. Halfway down the course, the riders strung out like a broken necklace of sweat and fury. Jaime's hand dropped to his saddle, the lasso uncoiled in his fist.
There it is, just like Abuela said.
Lucas tugged Gray to the right, gaining a clear view of the spinning loop. The lasso rose. The race was no longer about speed. It was about survival. Jaime swung the lasso in a wide arc and released. The rope flew at Lucas like a viper, uncoiling from saddle leather. Lucas saw the loop coming. Time stretched into a single frozen heartbeat, filled with the memory of Catherine's warning.
Down, Gray.
He pressed his body flat against Gray's neck. The rope sailed over his head, snatching nothing but air and dust. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The failed attack seemed to ignite something primal in the gray horse. Gray lunged forward with explosive speed. Muscles rippled under dust-caked hide as he tore away from the pack.
Now, Gray, show them the storm they tried to kill.
Behind him, Jaime lost his seat. The spent rope tangled the chestnut's legs, and the rider tumbled into the choking dust. Gray broke free of the pack, his ear twitching with each stride. The finish line shimmered ahead, still 100 heartbeats away. Lucas glanced back once. Jaime was just a shape in the dust. Then he faced forward, and the world narrowed to the wire. With the wire in sight, Lucas leaned low and whispered into Gray's twitching ear. The final rival was just a shoulder ahead. Every stride was a scream of muscle. The Gray's nose crept past the other horse, inch by desperate inch. Lucas urged him with choked words. Voice rasping in the dust-filled air, the tape snapped across Gray's chest. The twine broke with a crack lost in the crowd's eruption. The crowd surged to its feet. Hats flew into the air as a roar shook the arena. Lucas sat up, arms raised, and let the noise wash over him. Gray's sides heaved. Then he turned. High in the stands, Castillo was already on his feet, face purple with rage. His gloved hand moved to his belt. The leather holster creaked as he drew the nickel-plated revolver. The gun glinted in the sun. Time froze as Lucas saw the barrel rising toward him. The roar of the crowd became a distant hum. In that moment, victory tasted like ash. The crowd's cheer curdled into screams as Castillo steadied the revolver. Lucas couldn't breathe. Then a voice cut through. Catherine had battled her way to the edge of the stands, the old shotgun in her hands. The double barrels rose. Castillo saw her too late. The shotgun roared. One deafening blast that silenced the arena. Smoke swirled. Castillo's revolver flew from his hand as he staggered backward. A dark stain spread across his chest. He dropped to his knees, clawing at the railing. Catherine stood still, the smoking barrels steady, her eyes never leaving the man she'd just shot. Lucas remained frozen on Gray, his mind refusing to accept what had just happened. Castillo slumped over the wooden barrier, and a hush fell over the crowd, like a shroud, like a shroud. Then Gray lifted his head and neighed a sound of pure, untamed victory that echoed across the silent arena. Hoofbeats cut the silence. Mayor Enrique rode onto the track, his face carved from old stone. He stopped, surveying the chaos, the fallen man, the smoking shotgun, the trembling boy on the gray horse. Without dismounting, he pointed at Castillo. This man tried to murder the winner. He has forfeited his rights. He rode closer to Lucas and raised the boy's hand high. Lucas Mendoza is the true champion of this race. Then his voice deepened. For his crimes, Castillo's ranch and holdings are forfeit. They pass to the boy he wronged. A rusted iron key fell into Lucas's palm. The crowd murmured, disbelief wrestling with awe. Lucas stared at the key, his fingers closing around it slowly, as if it might burn him. A chorus of shouts rose from the stands. Some cheered, others shouted accusations, but the law had spoken. Catherine lowered the shotgun and walked to Lucas's side. She placed a trembling hand on his knee. Lucas looked down at her, then at the key, and finally out toward the mountains, where Gray would one day run free. Days later, the iron gates of Castillo's ranch swung open. For the last time, Lucas and Catherine walked through, shadows stretching long over the fine cobblestones.
This place feels wrong, Lucas. Like it was built on bones. What will you do with it?
He did not answer. Instead, he led Gray past the stables and toward the mountain trail. At the edge of the wild, where the grass gave way to stone, Lucas stopped and unknotted the halter.
You were never meant to be owned, Gray. Go. Run where no man can touch you.
The horse nuzzled his chest, a long breath, then turned toward the peaks. Gray took one step, then another, and then he ran. Rocks clattered as he disappeared into the mist. Lucas watched until the sound of hooves faded. The emptiness was a clean, sharp thing. He turned back to the ranch, the key heavy in his pocket, but his heart was already on the mountain. A year passed. The ranch thrived, but Lucas always looked toward the mountains. One spring morning, a familiar shape appeared on the ridge, dusty, gaunt, and wild.
Gray.
The horse came down to the corral, stayed a week, then vanished into the peaks. Year after year, when the desert bloomed, the gray horse returned. Lucas's shoulders broadened, his scar faded to a pale line, his beard grew thick. Catherine's chair sat empty by the winter fire. She passed in her sleep, a gentle end, yet still the horse came, an old ghost with a twitching ear, slower each spring. Lucas, a man now, would stand at the fence and wait for the shape on the ridge. The ritual was the only thing that never changed, a bond that time could not wear down. One spring, the shape on the ridge was wrong. Gray stumbled, legs buckling, as he came down the mountain one last time. Lucas ran to him, heart pounding. The horse collapsed under the shade tree, chest heaving. He slid to his knees and lifted the great head into his lap. The left ear twitched slower than ever.
Easy, Gray. I am here. I am here.
He whispered, the old healing prayers. Catherine taught him. Though there was no healing left to do, the horse's eyes, clouded with age, found Lucas one final time. A long breath escaped. Then the twitching stopped. Gray grew still. Lucas did not move. Ranch hands came, but he waved them away with a hand that held no key, only mane. He stayed beneath the tree, the old horse's head heavy in his lap, until the sun fell. Tears cut through the dust on his face. The ritual had ended. When dawn came, Lucas rose and walked to the tool shed. He returned with a shovel, its blade worn thin. He dug beneath the tree where the roots held the hill together. The earth was dry but gave way. He lifted the gray horse into the hollow. The hide was cold, but the muscles still held their power. He covered him with soil, handful by handful, until the mound was smooth and no dust rose. Then he turned to the old halter and twisted it into a cross. He drove it into the ground and stood. He was a man now, with silver in his hair and a quiet calm in his eyes. Lucas walked back toward the ranch. He did not look behind him. The tree stood alone on the hill, its leaves stirring in the wind. The ranch below was quiet, the mountain beyond still. A bond that had walked through fire and death finally rested in the quiet earth. The gray horse had returned to the mountain, and Lucas would carry him forever.